David, you were head of government services in Wiltshire for a number of years. Do you think that kind of support that you're used to providing to governors is going to continue, and if not, what's going to take its place?
Well, it's certainly different in different parts of the country already. I think a few years ago, Ofsted used to inspect local authorities, and they inspected governor services teams. And at that time, governor services right across the country were one of the highest rated, just consistently right across the board. And then Ofsted stopped inspecting, so we don't have any more evidence. But I mean, certainly since the coalition government came in and started slashing local authority budgets, inevitably some of those teams have been decimated. Some have disappeared, some have been weakened. Many have had to boost the traded element, if not going for 100% trading status, and some are better at it than others. We know that in quite a lot of cases, the more expensive member has taken redundancy, and it's left to the remaining team to carry on the service. But is that the same quality of service? It is in some cases, and maybe not in others. So I think it's a very mixed picture. And I mean, we're both governors, and I'm sure we would agree that you need local governor services. And if not, where are you going to get it from?
Well, don't you think the nature of what has to be provided has changed? Because you've got different types of schools, and I think different expectations of what governors should be doing, or at least sharper expectations.
I think the essence of what you need as a governor hasn't changed. I mean, the basic induction, for example, is the same, I would have said, in an academy or a free school as it is in any other kind of school. But obviously in academies you need more specialist training in financial accountability and systems, I guess. Some other legal aspects, perhaps. And there are new teams doing that and charging a great deal more than local government services ever did. So, I mean, there does seem to be a trend towards it becoming more expensive if you become an academy. But, I mean, my view is if a service was worth its salt, it would have been trading pretty effectively anyway. So the budget cuts shouldn't damage it too much. And hopefully in an open marketplace, some of those teams at least will survive and prosper and learn to provide a wider range of training and support.
But isn't that the sort of problem, the wider range? Because there are more issues which fall on governors' shoulders than there were before, so there are more things that they need to know about. And the days when you could probably develop a suite of basic 12 courses, and you covered, you've done your finance and your HR, and obviously done the induction, etc. And are not going to be there, because you still will need those, but you'll need a lot more things that governors need too.
Yeah, I think so, and of course new media as well. So online learning, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I mean there's more of that available than ever before. And I hope governors will get a bit more canny about looking around to see what is there. There are certainly a lot of new services available, sparing your blushes, not least ones that you offer, for example. So I think, yes, governors have got to spend a bit more time now looking around and saying, well, starting from a needs analysis, what do we actually need in the next 12 months, 2 years, and where's the best place to get it from? And it won't necessarily all come from the same source.
But it's not just spending time, is it? It's spending money.
Money as well.
And that strikes me as still being a big obstacle. I mean, maybe even more so when they're aware of their budgets being tighter. There's so awful reluctance to spend money on themselves, on their own needs.
I think you're right, and overall I would expect to see fewer governors taking up training opportunities just for that reason. Which is bad news, really. We need well-informed governors, don't we? Well-trained governors. So I think maybe there are other approaches you can take. I mean, training in conjunction with other schools is an obvious way forward, and sharing resources, getting together with governors from a range of schools nearby and then using your combined resource to buy in some support. It's got to be a good option.
Is there any chance you think that the problem can be tackled from the other side, maybe as an unintentional consequence of something else, the governor responsibilities might actually be reduced. So it's not such a broad, it'll still be a big job, but not such a broad job, and hence wouldn't be such a need for a great range of training. Do you think that would ever happen?
Well, I think the evidence suggests that governors do say that, there's far too much to do. If only we didn't have to do X, Y and Z. But when really pushed, when they're asked, well, which would you drop? Yeah. The answer is, well, actually none of them.
Yes.
Because, not least, because I think they're all interrelated anyway, aren't they? Most governor responsibilities. Yeah. And you're the governor of the whole school, and therefore you're responsible ultimately for everything that happens in it, in effect. So ideally, you know something about everything that happens in school.
Yeah. But you don't always, have those responsibilities. Yes, you want to be responsible for appointing the head teacher and doing the performance management, controlling the budget, overview of the curriculum, all those things. Why would you want to be a governor unless you had some input into those? But the amount of work and the ancillary things that come in. We can take finance, for example. You suddenly, there's a whole raft of things that you've got to do. They simplified the basic financial standard by getting rid of FAMSIS and putting in something that's a bit easier, which very much welcome. But there's still, if you go to local authority sites, still a lot of policies that they want governors to do and procedures. They want them to have as well, which then make that particular job actually quite a big one that maybe could really be simplified if governors were encouraged much more just to be worried about the top and bottom lines in finance, and then leave the rest to the staff.
And I suppose also in terms of school improvement, there's just so much data, isn't there? Just yesterday I was sitting in on a presentation on Raise Online, and I'm one of those people who understands it when I'm being trained on it. I follow it, it makes sense, and then I leave the building and I look at it again and I think, hang on, what was that? Not sure I understand this anymore. It is still incredibly complicated. And it seemed to me, looking at a Raise Online report yesterday, that there is so much detail in it that you have to do so much work to get to a point where you can say, oh, I see, so I need to ask this question based on this data. I don't see why somebody couldn't go through every Raise Online report and pick out what are the important issues for us as governors. So why should we have to do that?
Yeah.
Because we could we could misinterpret it, we could miss something important. Surely it's not too much to ask to.
But wouldn't you say to any governing body it's exactly what they should do? The reports there, if they want to look at it, maybe one or two might, but the basic thing is to get the head teacher or another member of the senior leadership team, often better if it's not the head teacher, to do a presentation. And if you then forearm the governors with some questions, such as, ask why you didn't meet the target, ask are girls and boys doing equally well, ask what about children on free school meals, special educational needs. You can list them on one side of A4
you can.
To quiz it. That really should be enough.
But then you're dependent on the head or deputy to do it. So it's not getting rid of the work. What I'm arguing for is that the document arrives on your desk with those points and those questions on the front page. But
the head and deputy should be doing that anyway. That's their job. If they're not looking at Raise Online, then why are they your head?
Well, I agree. But yes, all right. We'll let them do the work then, shall we?
Well, but an awful lot of governing body work is that, isn't it? It's other people doing the work, and your job is to ask the right questions.
But do you think all heads and deputies really understand Raise Online?
No, I don't think they do. And in fact, that's another issue. If you want to gripe here, is a national professional qualification for heads. That I've discovered through working with a new head myself that she didn't get a training in a lot of things like that, or how to produce a school development plan, let alone the ones we know about, like they're not given training on finance, and they certainly don't seem to be trained on how to work with governing bodies and their responsibilities are. So yes, there are heads who don't know that, but then perhaps they're not being properly trained.
But if that's your head doesn't really understand Raise Online, governors don't quite get it, it becomes a wasted resource, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but I'm not so gloomy about the picture. I'd say it seems to be that's the case for the majority of heads. I think probably most grasp it, and I think those who don't will grasp it sort of fairly quickly. Actually.
Okay.
I mean, perhaps this is a slightly rosy view.
It's just very much at the forefront of my mind because I was looking at it yesterday and thinking about it.
Yeah, but it's an issue with anything, isn't it? That you've got to expect that your head knows how to do the job, and if you're governors, you should know enough about the aspects of that job to get an idea if they don't seem to know what they're doing. But that doesn't mean you can do the job for them.
No.
I mean, you might get a sense that from what your head teacher tells you that they haven't really got a very good grasp on the quality of teaching. In the classroom, they've been too cursory or been too willing to find good, not being critical enough, or the opposite. They're going in like Caligula. So Torquemada's would be a better example. But that doesn't mean you need to be able to do that job yourself. But you hope to have the skills to pick out what they're doing, and a lot of those are personal skills, sort of healthy scepticism.
Yes,
there's healthy scepticism to be a governor.
Definitely.
And
yes, another way of looking at it is the ability to ask the follow-up question.
Absolutely.
There's an awful lot of guidance on what questions to ask, but not much about what do you do with the answers. Yeah. And often the answers are misleading or inadequate or confusing. So what do you do then? Do you just move on to the next question, or do you ask, well, could you explain that a bit more? Or, but I've looked at the data and I think X. I think that's difficult for governors, and that's the bit where it sometimes goes wrong. And then, I liken it to children. The way children always say, "Why, Daddy? Why, Daddy?" You give them another answer, "Why, Daddy?" Yeah. I think we have to be a bit like that as governors sometimes, and it's not easy, is it? It feels like you're nagging and getting at somebody.
Or that you're looking stupid because you're asking, why do we have two legs? And the answers must be obvious to everybody else. No, I agree entirely. I think it's that second question, but I think it's often there. I think it's just having the confidence, in fact, to come out with it. It is a fear of looking stupid, or there's the feeling of it can't be worth asking. So you've got to have that, and that's where in fact a bit of ignorance actually is quite useful. Yes. Maybe it helps if you're not thoroughly immersed in Raise Online, so you've already formed your own answers, actually. But it comes back to what we were talking about with skills, and you've got to ask what skills you want of governors, and they're not necessarily being able to make high-level decisions, it's being able to answer awkward questions. Not minding doing that. And if it is a stupid question, somebody will tell you. So. Or you'll get a patronising answer and it'll all move on.